I'm Alan Greeley, and I love thinking and meditating on Scripture. Another word for it, which we don't use very often, is pondering. When the mother of Jesus heard the shepherds retell the vision of the angels' celebratory singing, the Scripture says Mary treasured up all these things, pondering them in her heart. That alone is my goal with this podcast. I want us to treasure in our hearts what we hear from God and ponder it. It would be an honor to have you listen in and ponder with me. To God be the glory.
You have been so, so good to me.
Hello, everybody. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I normally start out with what we're pondering for the episode, and it's normally just me doing the talking. But this is our first interview, if you will. I've got Bryan Schiele with me. And the reason that we have Bryan Schiele is that he's going to be coming in from Arizona. He is from Phoenix. That's where he resides right now. And Bryan Schiele is going to be coming in to Indiana, where I preach and teach here at the Plainfield Church. And he's going to be speaking for us in a gospel meeting March 15th through the 18th. I want to invite everybody to that meeting and just kind of introduce Bryan, talk a little bit about his background, talk a little bit about his lessons coming up. But Bryan and I, we go way back. We'll talk a little bit about it. We are very good friends. He has a podcast of his own. He does a ton of Bible class teaching. He does sermons. He's just a really talented guy in just so many amazing ways. So, Bryan, thank you so much for being with us here on the pondering session. You're a great ponderer, by the way.
Well, thank you very much. He has a lot of superlatives and things thrown my way. I appreciate it. I am sort of missing that this episode won't begin with ponder with me. I feel like that is like the character of this show, and I love it so much. So thanks for having me on. This is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your background. Obviously, I'm from Phoenix. That's where Bryan and I created our friendship, and we were worshiping together at the Monte Vista Church of Christ, which is where he currently is. But tell us a little bit about how you serve that group and just a little bit about yourself, please.
As you well know, I was a baby there at Monte Vista. I grew up in that congregation, and when I was married, first we moved over to a congregation on the west side of town, and we worked there for about 8 years or so, and then we came back to Monte Vista, and it was funny to see how things changed. And at around that point, we became deacons, a few of us, as they began promoting a few more people into those service roles. And so I stepped in along with Ryan Joy, who we all know and love, and a preacher up in Fort Wayne. We stepped in at the time to serve the church in terms of like website work and technology. And that was like really early on in churches starting to think through those kinds of things. And it was cool to build a website together and work on posting videos and marketing the sermons that were being presented at the time. And a lot of the marketing work was about the preaching that was going on and putting those videos out. And you were one of the preachers there who was stepping in from time to time. So I got to listen to you a lot as we would produce.
Sorry about those early sermons, bro.
It's really funny. I've gone back even in recent years and listened to a lot of those, and boy, they stand up. They still slap real hard, and it almost feels like you haven't missed a beat from those very early sermons that I listened to decades ago and up to this point. So,
well, I'm glad they're standing up to some degree. I'd like to think I've grown some. I think back about what I knew about the Bible and just what I knew about people. When I first started preaching at Monte Vista, I didn't have any kids.
Oh, right. Yeah. That was real early on.
Yeah. I mean, we were in the process of adopting Judah when we moved down there, and that's actually why we moved down there and stopped traveling up to Prescott to preach, was because of Judah being adopted, which was an amazing blessing. But as you know, from having a daughter yourself, it just changes a lot of things about perspective and how I look at God. I remember my first Lord's Supper. Matter of fact, I was just telling Judah about this the other day. I remember my first Lord's Supper as a father, and I was in a bucket of tears, and I was actually
Yeah.
preaching that morning.
That's
And Judah asked me, like, what did I do? Like, did I go to the bathroom? And I was like, I just used like a paper towel or something that I had stuffed in my pocket just to kind of clean up. But it really does change perspective. So that's where Bryan and I met, and you still serve as a deacon there, but your role has changed, right?
Yeah, I've since transitioned from the website and technology kind of work. A lot of that is sort of taken care of now by many other people. And our group was looking for someone to look over the teaching program. And so I was asked by the elders to sort of step into that role. And it's a passion of mine. I really enjoy teaching the younger kids and thinking about how they learn and what's important to be teaching them at what stages in their development. And that was just something that I really latched onto in a big way. So I've been working on adapting and writing Bible class material for the high school kids. And this is nothing new for me because you and I, actually years ago, that's actually where we really started working together on a very regular basis, teaching the 4th through 6th grade class, I think roughly around there.
Yeah.
And that was just, I don't remember how long we did that, but it felt like just a few minutes. But I'm fairly confident it was a couple of years that we worked together in that class, teaching that age group.
It was 5 to 6 years.
Oh,
And
boy.
I'm not kidding, because the reason that I remember so clearly is at the time when you and I were teaching together, the material that the church was using was a 5-year program. You remember this?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It was a 5-year program where you took the kids, from beginning to end, Genesis through Revelation, and we went through the entire Bible with that class.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, kids were moving in and out of the class, and so it wasn't like the same exact kids, but that's how it stuck in my memory about how long it was. So I'm glad you thought it was like 2 years, because that means it went by kind of fast. But it was like 5 or 6, because you and I taught the whole Bible to that age group, which was just so. I have referenced it in a few sermons and classes before. It was so good for me because I've always loved deep things, deep connections. I try to bring those out on the podcast. Sometimes I do a good job, sometimes probably not. But like when you're teaching kids, it forces you to try to put it in like the most basic language. And that was really good for me.
I think that's one of the biggest benefits of that kind of, you're juxtaposing like a Sunday morning sermon where you can really dig in deep, right? And mine the gold. But then you come right out of a Bible class where you just got done, almost like you feel like you're scratching the surface, or you're trying to put things in the most simplest terms possible. And I think both of them inform each other. Like, you are able to, because of the depth of study, get in there and explain something simply in the most clear possible way without it becoming muddy. But then at the same time, once you actually do have the opportunity to say something in more detail to a mature audience, that simplicity that you've curated in teaching the younger people is really helpful in that case too, to not, make things less clear than they should be. And I feel like you've always done a really good job in that. In your preaching, it's one of the things I've appreciated, is like, there's almost no ambiguity about what you're saying when you get up there and speak. Something I've aspired to do and really fall short at a lot in my own preaching. It's like, come on, just say the simple thing. And that's that can be such a struggle when you're really trying to wrestle with deep things.
Yeah, it is a struggle. But that teaching those kids really helped me in that regard. But that was not the only time Bryan and I collaborated. So we taught the kids class for like 5 years or so. And then we did a Minor Prophets series together where we took the first Sunday of each month and we were talking about just kind of summarizing different minor prophets. And then you and I did a First Peter series at a different local congregation in the Phoenix area, where we just kind of went back and forth about different chapters in First Peter. And you and I did the same thing in Isaiah.
I feel like that's so probably one of my favorite collaborative moments, in preaching. It's, for me, I love to think about sermons as series because, boy, it is so hard. Like if you just get a 25-minute,
series.
30-minute, speaking opportunity, it's so hard to just encapsulate the whole story that you're trying to get into. And then being able to string lessons together is also really helpful, is even better than that. But even better than that is having two separate voices come in and go back and forth on the same series together. And I feel like the planning of those conversations was what I really enjoyed the most. I mean, the sermons were great. I enjoyed those too. But like just thinking about how we're going to divvy this up, what do we really want to be teaching here? What is the actual text telling us that we really need to highlight in this week or that week? And boy, that was a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, it was. In fact, that First Peter series, I actually reused some of that in Florida in a gospel meeting. And then when I was trying out here in Indiana to be the preacher here at Plainfield, I used my very first Peter lesson from that series that we did. So it's paid dividends, but I do love series. To go back to that for a moment, someone had asked me, I have a speaking engagement scheduled for April in Florida, and someone was asking me like, hey, what's your greatest hits? Can you give us a few samples or whatever? And in my email to them just recently, I was like, a lot of my lessons don't kind of stand on their own.
Right.
They're so interconnected and they're so much a part of a series a lot of times. And because of that, it sounds like they don't stand on their own, but of course you could always tweak them. But I really think when you make them interconnected and you tie them in a series, it allows you not to make shortcuts. I mean, ultimately, because scripture is so deep, you have to.
Yeah.
But just taking the word at its word, no pun intended, in its context, man, I have such a passion for that, and I know you do too.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I really enjoyed. I almost was sad to see you stop your Old Testament, Christ in the Old Testament series that you were doing on the podcast. That was one of my favorites, right? Because it's just that, like, there are so many connections there that we just don't think about very often, or we don't, it doesn't trigger for us as much because we don't have the Old Testament scriptures as like deeply written in our psyche as maybe they did in the first century when Jesus was coming on the scene.
100%.
And they're firing on all cylinders, like all of these connections that they're making. And to get our minds back into the minds of a first century Jewish person who is listening and hearing the Messiah for the very first time, is one of the most like eye-opening kinds of moments. And I love series like that, and you definitely could not do that in like one concise lesson. I mean, it really has to be, a multi-part endeavor that you go through. And I love that one a lot. It's funny you talk about series and how helpful that is. A lot of what I'm planning for this upcoming meeting has come from a series that Ryan, Joy, and I worked on years ago. Actually, we called it the Cross Training Series, and we did an entire year-long deep dive into discipleship. And it was like really just a focus on, if Jesus wants us to be followers of his, disciples of his, how can we become more like the teacher? How can we model our life after his? And that was really the focus of like a whole year of our podcasting together, was this cross-training series that we did, trying to be like Jesus. And I have taken that material and been able to like reuse it in so many different ways. I'm actually building Bible class material for our high schoolers out of it, like right now. And so it's cool to be able to take those conversations, those passages, those insights, and remake them, remold them into class material, sermons, articles, lots of other things.
That's so awesome. I'm glad you get to repackage it. When it's super valuable and there's crossover, it's kind of nice to be able to repackage it and talk to different groups. So tell the group, the listeners, about your podcast. So I mentioned it once or twice on my podcast, but Bryan is a part of a podcast with a preacher that preaches up at Fort Wayne. He mentioned his name already, Ryan Joy, who also has roots back in Arizona. But the podcast is called Bible Geeks. And so tell us how long you've been doing that and a little bit about what you guys try to do on there?
Well, as we record this, for the listeners who may not realize, we're probably recording this a little early, but it's February 6th today. It's Friday. On February 7th, tomorrow, is our anniversary. We started podcasting back in 2019 on February 7th.
Happy anniversary, bro.
Thank you. It's been like 7 years of doing the show with Ryan, and Ryan and I also, like you and Ryan and all three of us, really just big Bible nerds and love to talk about stuff and get deep. And one of our biggest joys, I guess, is to talk about the Bible in ways that it doesn't sound like two people talking about the Bible, if that makes any sense. It's like, we try not to be boring. We try not to be dry. We try to really be relevant and conversational and real about how the Bible's impacting our lives and what we're finding. And, that show has just been so helpful for me over the years. We've been able to just cover all kinds of different topics and subjects, and we've created material out of it, Bible classes and different conversational materials and evangelistic tools and things from that show. And I've loved it. It's been great. And he challenges me, all the time, just to think bigger and to get deeper. And I've grown a lot in these conversations. I've really enjoyed them. And for anyone else who's listened to it and has found any value in it, that's great. But I always say that the biggest value in it is that I get to talk to my buddy about the Bible every week and basically force him into a schedule to come and meet with me.
That's so awesome. You guys do such a good job. I don't get to listen to every episode. I normally do my podcast listening. I've told you this before, when I'm mowing. When I'm mowing my lawn.
You're not going to do that in the wintertime, probably.
I'm not in mowing mode, so
it's okay.
I do miss several episodes, but you guys do such a there's very few podcasts that do such a good job of keeping it casual and deep.
Yeah.
Like those two combinations, two things together, it's tough to find, but your friendship, which goes back so long with Ryan, I think that's helpful in keeping it as casual as you guys do.
Yeah, well, and we, have similar interests, and we come from similar backgrounds, and we think a lot alike, but boy, we are an odd couple for sure. He is a very creative, outside the box thinker, big picture, galaxy brain kind of guy. And I love myself a spreadsheet and the rules, and I love things to be orderly and methodical. And so the both of us, when we get together, kind of offset each other's quirks a little bit. So hopefully people are like connecting with that show. If you guys do listen, if not, check it out. I mean, it's BibleGeeks.fm. That's where we launch episodes pretty much every week. It's great. Yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot. Hope we keep doing it for years to come.
You guys are so geeky, and I mean that in the best way. I mean that in the best way possible.
Oh, man. So, spoken like a true Bible geek himself, right? The pot calling the kettle black.
True. Yeah, I that's the best compliment I could give, or one of them. So let's talk about your meeting. So again, we're having Bryan come in March 15th through the 18th. If you are anywhere close to Indianapolis, we would love to come. I'll put details about the address, where the church is, kind of in the notes of the episode. But the title of the series is called Unveiled, Beholding Christ, Reflecting His Glory. And then just go through, a few of these titles, if you will. So there's going to be 6 different lessons: the audit, the mirror, the student, the hunger, the race, the team. I love your titles, by the way. You always do such an amazing job of that. So talk to us a little bit about the series and maybe a few details regarding each lesson. Not trying to get you to divulge all the goodies in each one, but talk to us, give us a little bit of a taste.
For sure. It's funny because you announced to me, like you kind of let me in on your theme, your congregational theme for 2026.
Yes.
Which, was really about seeing the glory of God. And I love that word. I love that word in the Hebrew, as you've been bringing out on the podcast. Kavod is just one of my favorite thoughts about the heaviness of God.
I had a few kids come up to me after my first lesson on glory and start making jokes about me being big.
Yep.
Like being a big guy to these kids, and like you're so glorious.
You're so glorious.
Big. Some of the kids actually started latching on to that idea of like big, heavy, large. and that being the original meaning. Anyways, keep going. I just thought that was funny.
For sure. No, and I think that's, the little kid in me definitely latches on to that same idea, just thinking about bigness and largeness. But glory is not a word we tend to use in our English language very often. But when I think about God and when I think about his bigness and how substantial he is and how amazing he is, yeah, like you've been bringing out in your episodes here, all the way back to the beginning, right? It was God's creation that demonstrated his glory into the world. And then the fact that he calls us to image him and to be like him and has given us the dominion, which is again, another like reigning or ruler kind of term. He's given us this dominion. He's given us this charge to be like him and reflect his image into the world. And I don't know that we always think about our purpose in that way, or enough, maybe. I think we maybe latch onto it sometimes and see it as clearly as we ought to sometimes, but I think we miss it. We can miss it, our purpose being to reflect his glory into the world. So that's really what this series is about, is not only seeing the glory of God, as you've been talking about in your series, and I know by the end of the year, I know you're going to get into the reflecting that glory out into the world and sort of the practical side of it. I kind of just wanted to skip right to the end here in this meeting and maybe just talk about, like, what does it look like to reflect the glory, the weightiness, the importance of God into the world. And so that's kind of why I wanted to start this whole series with an audit. Before we really start thinking about how to reflect the glory of God into the world in better ways. Like, where are we? Where am I?
Being honest with each other.
Yeah, just to really strip away the facade and be like, where am I in my reflecting of God's glory into the world? Where have I fallen short? Where do I need to improve on? What have I been doing well? Where am I making real strides in my service to the Lord? And then that leads sort of into the main event, which is the mirror. And that's really what, you used on your last glory episode. You use the word imaging as if that's something we just like say, all the time. It's like, that's not a term that we tend to use very often, but I think we all know what it means, right? Like, we all know what it means to reflect something or to present the image of something out into the world. And that's, I guess, what I want to talk about in that sermon, reflecting the mirror image of the glory of God into the world. And the only way we can do that is if we're like Jesus. And that's actually what I really appreciated about what you said in Romans 3 in your last conversation, how,
sin.
It's about falling short of the glory whenever we sin and whenever we choose to break God's righteous rule in our life. Like, we're not reflecting him well. We're not attaining to that standard that he wanted for us, that he purposed for us from the very beginning. So what does he want us to do in our life? Is this just about like behavior modification, or is this something more than that?
I just recorded an episode today that'll come out on Sunday that's along those lines. Like, people don't change because of just rules, understanding rules. So anyways, I won't give that too much of that away. And then the next one is the student.
Yeah. And so the next 4 lessons, the last 4 lessons in this series, are really dealing with 4 aspects that, if Ryan has taught me anything, he has absolutely drilled into my head this idea that to be a holistic disciple, you have to focus on the mind, the heart, your actions, and your community. And these 4 things together really help you to become a holistic disciple. And if you're missing one of these things, if you're just like learning, but you don't actually put the things into your heart and let it change you from the inside out, then that's hollow. If you know a lot and you're really convicted, but you just don't ever go do anything about it, like that, again, doesn't lead to anything productive. And so all 4 of these upcoming lessons at the end, from Sunday night to Wednesday, are really focused on those aspects. So the student lesson is all about building your mind as like a learner's mind, making sure that you have the kind of mind that doesn't pridefully stand up and say, I know everything. I have it all figured out. And it's just about the humility that keeps you growing.
Or even that we know enough.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. Like you've attained to some level of knowledge. It's like, no. Like there's still more to go. If we know anything about the Bible and about Scripture and about what God wants us to do, there's still more for us to know.
I love that. We could use that for sure.
Yeah, so that lesson is really focused on the mind. The heart lesson is on Monday. I mean, it's really just about the hunger. And I love the little tagline here is waking up a bored soul.
Dude, I almost wrote a sermon about that idea.
Really?
So I'm glad I got your flyer in time so that I could avoid that. But just the idea of, what do we do when we lose our excitement? I don't know if that's kind of where you're headed.
Yeah. That's it.
Good.
You've got this constant stream of distraction. I call it snacking on the world. How there's just all this constant feed of information, sports and hobbies and everything else that comes in. And like we've almost ruined our appetite by snacking on the world. There's just so much distraction and things that we need to carve away from our lives so that we can really, again, become spiritually satisfied by what God gives us in his word. So kind of, focusing on the heart of the matter, I guess, no pun intended here in that lesson. That's kind of what we're focusing on there.
Cool. And then the race is Tuesday?
Yeah, so then it's about motivation again, right? And, of course, the race of our life, it's not a sprint, it definitely is a marathon. And so we're going to talk about holy habits. And because sometimes we want to knuckle down, like it's February, like, early in February right now. That people who have like started out with resolutions have probably, given them up by now, right? And so
don't make me divulge the ones I've quit already.
Exactly. I mean, we want to think that like willpower is going to muscle us through, but I think, these holy habits, these ruts, these spiritual ruts that we can dig that are good and helpful can really help us to just propel our faithfulness forward into the future. And so we're going to talk about these habits that can sort of carry us through there on Tuesday. And then we'll wrap the whole thing up with Wednesday, talking about the team, which is focused on that community part of it. And for us to put the church into its proper place and its perspective, like it is going to be really difficult for you to start thinking that you've got to do all of this on your own, that you have to, you have to carry yourself, pick yourself up by your bootstraps or whatever. And so Wednesday we'll talk about letting go of independence and learning to rely and lean on each other in our service. So hopefully that'll be a focus on discipleship and reflecting the glory of God into the world. And hopefully I won't be stepping on way too many things that you want to talk about in the Glory series this year.
It'll be separate enough. I mean, we're not going to get to the New Testament until the later part of the year. So,
nice.
I mean, some of these things are just absolute gold. And I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to your series. Just having listened to you over the years and all the stuff that we've gotten together and worked together on, you've always done a great job. So I know you will again. Again, Bryan's series starts March 15th. That's a Sunday, goes all the way through March 18th, Wednesday. I'll put the details in the notes. But man, I just appreciate your friendship. I love you for all your work as a deacon, a teacher, and preacher, and your podcast work. Please keep it up and look forward to spending some time with you, man.
I'm really excited. When you asked me a few months back to do this, and you basically told me that I wasn't allowed to say no, I have been looking forward to it from that moment. So getting really excited to be with you guys and excited to meet a lot of new people. So bring a friend, invite some folks from the community. We're going to talk about practical stuff reflecting God's glory into the world. So excited to see everyone.
It's going to be great for us all. All right, everybody. God bless. And Bryan, I'll talk with you soon, man.
Cool. Take care, man.
Take care.
There's no wall you won't kick down, line you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found something to treasure in your hearts and ponder. The song you've heard is Reckless Love, sung by Praise and Harmony on their album, Resurrecting God. May God's face shine on you always.